G'day guys. Um, this is a quick video on hydration and what the Vagoonerized community thinks about it. Let me just share the screen. This is Mick and his Vagoonerized opinions.
And now here's another interesting finding that I've just never seen in a study that I recall, and that is they actually measured the water intake. And yes, vegans ate more water. They drank a statistically significantly larger amount of water every day. So how do meat eaters even get enough water? Where do you get your water, bro? Vegans need to make...
Where do we get our water? Simple. It's called metabolic water, you cockwomble. That's where we get it, from fat. We hydrate. We don't need to drink shitloads of deuterium-laden water with 155 parts per million. We consume fat, which is below 130, which is the safe zone to be in. That's where we get our water.
Make water as big of an issue for people that eat meat as they make protein for us, because in 2021, vegans definitely get enough protein. Anyway, a lot of times
Other bullshit.
reading a study and you'll kind of have a question, is what is the reason for this? Is there another answer in the study? And in this case, you might be wondering, I wonder if this water consumption has anything to do with sodium. So you can just go and find in the document, Control F,
Absolutely nothing to do with it.
sodium, and boom, that brings us just a couple pages down to this whole chart. And yeah, it looks like vegans eat about 700 milligrams a day less of sodium than the meat eaters in this study. So it isn't that they'd be eating more salt and getting more thirsty, it's the other way around. Maybe they're just more in tune with their bodies, getting that high.
Not at all, you cockwomble. Not at all. The reason is because carbohydrates dehydrate. Fat hydrates. That is why you're basically on a highly vagoonerized diet. So even somebody on a SAD diet, on a mixed macro type diet, is eating a certain amount of animal food. And as a consequence, the more animal foods that that person consumes, the less water required. We see it, with the traditional tribal communities when Mary Ruddock went with the Hunza for hunting, and the Maasai. They don't sit around consuming water continuously. Why? Because they hydrate with animal fats. That's how they get their hydration.
But I will say vegans kicked butt in this chart.
Garbage. Metabolic water. This is basically Wikipedia, but I'm not going to go into, there's a few issues here that I've got with this, but anyway, refers to water created inside a living organism through their metabolism by oxidizing energy-containing substances in their food. Animal metabolism produces, what they mean is by fat, about 107 to 110 grams of water per 100 grams of fat. Remember, I said about 10%. Obviously, there are differences. Obviously, if you're eating more of a grain-based animal product, you're going to basically get 7% more rather than 10% from a grass-fed. So there can be variations in the quality of, the quality of that metabolic water. Then they have this other part, which is pretty much irrelevant, 41 to 42 grams of water per 100 grams of protein. First of all, we don't oxidize protein unless you're a vagoonerized person with a high insulin and you're not eating enough calories, and then you just waste away your body, which is what happens in the vagoonerized community. But on the other hand, when it comes to water from carbohydrates, it's only 60 grams because carbohydrates dehydrate. And when you take in consideration the issue with the high deuterium content, it can actually drop much lower than that. They're just looking at general water production. But remember, through the citric cycle, you're dehydrogenating. And if those are high, if those ions there are deuterium ones, they'll be replaced, which means they're coming from somewhere else. So you've got to take that into consideration. They're just looking at bulk here. So, and refined carbohydrates will be much lower, will be in the 40 range. You only get 40% and 60% dehydration, less water in terms of that. and that's when it's refined carbohydrate, is what the majority of people, they're not consuming just general carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, they're consuming refined ones, which has even got less water. It's got similar water levels to protein, but the difference is protein water is used differently. I'll explain further down. So what does it say? Mammals, the water produced from metabolism of protein roughly equals the amount of water needed to excrete urea, which is a byproduct. So to get rid of urea from actually protein metabolism, that's where that water goes. So it's a non-issue. It's irrelevant. You're not, unless you're basically in rabbit starvation mode with not enough fat on board around your waistline, we're very low body fat, which some people, for some crazy reason, do push that level. Or if you're a vegan who basically can't access their body fat and it ends up skinny fat by just wasting away their muscles, which is what they do generally from their veganerized diet. Generally speaking, protein is not oxidized. It's on a species appropriate diet. It's used as a structural material for a number of other biological processes for enzymes and a whole lot of other things. And then that the processes, the processes internally of that protein, the water content of that will be used to get rid of the urea. So it's a non-issue. Birds, however, excrete uric acid and can have a net gain of water from metabolism of the protein. Aren't they lucky? So, yeah. There's another thing here that say humans, they say some organisms, which I've talked about the camels and all that, especially, animals that live in deserts, rely on metabolic water like camels do. And basically they say that humans, by contrast, obtain only 0 to 10% of their water needs through metabolic water production. That depends on the diet. The current modern diet, where people are basically consuming a very high deuterium laden diet, yes, they are basically extracting much less hydration from a low-fat diet that the majority of people are doing, a low animal-based diet, pretty much, which is now 30% animal products. So these are based on current figures, which basically when we're looking at that, it's not really telling me. This is why modern people are constantly having water bottles, where tribal people, you don't see them doing that. That's the difference. And Mary Ruddock noticed that when she had a chat with me. So basically the take-home message is, bro, Mick, the veganerized idiot, we get our water from fat. And you can take that to the bank. Anyway, see yous.